It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth.
Is it possible that there are no coincidences?
What have we done?
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
You must unlearn what you have learned.
Welcome, everyone, to the Fringe Files number 2. Tonight, I'm going to continue my conversation with Mr. Ralph Epperson. He is going to come back. He actually did come back and join me for a second conversation where, last week on the Fringe Files, he talked about how America has been basically set up to be taken down. And tonight we move into the formation of the New World Order, kind of how it all comes about, what it's all based on, who it's based on, who creates it, basically New World Order 101. The whole point of this Fringe Files show is to just take it back to the beginning and look at biblical concepts with individuals who I trust, who have vetted the information, who have spent the majority of their lives researching this information. And Ralph Epperson is one of the individuals who has put the time in. He's got some skin in the game. He has been at this for a long time, and I trust him, and I trust the information that he gives us. And so that's why I brought him on the show. I'm very, very particular on who's going to come on and do a Fringe Files show, because I really, truly believe that there's a lot of information out there that's bad information. And so I want to bring people on who are going to give us information that has been vetted, has been researched, has been looked at for more than an hour on YouTube, and then all of a sudden they're experts. So anyway, Ralph's coming back on. He had a lot to say. He kicked me up for another night with this one. And for a lot of people who are familiar with conspiracy and New World Order, much of what he says is not going to be a surprise. But those of you who just kind of shy away from these subjects, who tend to stay away because it scares you, I want to tell you guys something. God did not give us a spirit of fear, and I am not doing these shows to scare you. This is not for shock value. I'm not doing this for any reason other than, as Christians, we need to understand the world that we are living in. Now, we're not part of this world. At least we shouldn't be. We shouldn't be part of this world. We should be members of God's kingdom. Unfortunately, we're stuck here until we go see him in the sky, or until he comes back. Okay? So, while we're here, our job is to get as many people saved as we can, get as many people brought into the kingdom of Jesus Christ as we can, and do the very best we can with what we have. But Satan rules this world. And he will until God comes back. He has free reign, running around like a lion, trying to devour whoever he can. Now, obviously, if you are a follower of Jesus Christ, if he is your Lord and Savior, and you have asked for protection, you've got that, But he's looking to chew up and spit out anybody he can. And he's mad. He's pissed off right now. Let's just face it. And the Bible has already told us what he's going to do and how he's going to do it. You can read the end of the book. You know the end. We know how it all goes down. So none of this should be a surprise to anybody. What's surprising to me is how fast this has all happened. What's surprising to me is how quickly we have gone down the path that we're going down right now. And so Ralph is going to give us a lot of information, especially from a certain doctor who gave a speech at a conference back in 1969. And the things he revealed in that conference are things that are happening right now, almost 40 years later. And so pay close attention to what Ralph has to say, and do not be afraid. This is not about being afraid. Walk boldly. Like I said, God did not give us a spirit of fear. This is not something to be afraid of. We know our place. We know who we are in Christ. And put your faith in him and don't worry about the rest, but just understand where we're at. Understand what's going on around you. So before we get to the interview, you all know that we're on iTunes, we're on Stitcher, and we're on Spreaker. We're getting much, much closer now to going with a live show once a week also. So that will be added to the lineup. But, we could really use some reviews and just giving us some reviews and some ratings out there on iTunes and on Spreaker and on Stitcher. It only takes a second. If you would just go, give us a rating, click on, give us however many stars you want to give us, write a little thing about the show. It really does help get the information out there. Like I've said before, I'm not worried about fame. I just want to get the information out. I know God has put information on my heart, and I would like it to get to as many people as possible. There's a lot of people out there wrecked right now, and those of you who listen to Cast Them Off Radio know that the majority of the shows that I do are reaching out to people who are wrecked, who are dealing with addiction, who are dealing with depression, who are dealing with just things that are separating us from God, things that are just everyday stuff that if we don't deal with it quickly and we don't deal with it on a spiritual level, then we start getting beat up. And so that's why I'm asking for your help getting the word out there. When we post our shows on Facebook, if you just share it, so that people who don't know about the shows can know about it, because there's a lot of people who are hurting out there that need help, and we don't charge a dime for what we do. It's all about getting people free and walking in our calling. And so that's why we do what we do. So if you could do that, if you could give us some ratings, some reviews, and kind of share our posts when we put them up there, I would really appreciate it. It's a great help to us, and we immensely appreciate that. Let's see. I think that's about it. Oh, obviously, if you're hurting, if you need help, if you need somebody to talk to, anything along those lines, get a hold of me. It's Brandon. My name's Brandon. It's castemoffradio@gmail.com. Send me an email. That's castemoffradio@gmail.com. And I'll help you with whatever I can help you with. I mean, if you just need to talk, if you need to vent, if you need to yell, if you need to scream, whatever. I'm here to listen. Okay, so just shoot me an email, castemoffradio@gmail.com. And that's about it. You can find me on Facebook. Search for Brandon Schwinn. It's like the bike with only one N. You can look up Cast 'Em Off Radio or Cast 'Em Off Ministries on Facebook. We're on Facebook as Cast 'Em Off Ministries. You can check us out online at castemoffradio.com. Go to our website there. All our shows are on the little Stitcher player to the right. If you just want to listen on the website, you can click on the shows in the right there. You click on Cast 'Em Off Radio, and then all the shows are listed. You can listen to them right from your browser under the show listing. All our show notes are there too. So when we have a guest on, and I say I'll post this in our show notes are on castemoffradio.com underneath the post for the show. So all you have to do is click on the link for the show, and the show notes will be on there. Like with this episode, I'll have all of Ralph's DVDs and books and his website and that kind of stuff linked in the show notes. So be sure to go to our website, castemoffradio.com, click on this episode, and check out the show notes. And definitely, guys, if you heard Ralph tonight on this show and you like what you heard, and just send him an email and tell him that you appreciate what he's doing, because he spent a lot of time on this, and he's doing this out of the kindness of his own heart, just trying to get people. He's a teacher, and he wants people to understand the world around him. He around you. He wants you to understand what is going on behind your back and behind the scenes that you can't see. Obviously, we know the architect, the devil, Satan, whatever you want to call him. He's the one behind all this. Him and his kingdom of darkness are the ones who are pulling the strings. They're the puppet masters. And so, none of this should come as a surprise, but we need to be aware of what's going on. So, this show will be up in the archives. If you don't want to listen to the whole thing, listen to part of it and then finish it later. But it'll always be there in the archives to check out whenever you want. So without further ado, check out the interview, the second interview with Mr. Ralph Epperson, New World Order 101. God bless. Joining me tonight for the second time is Mr. Ralph Epperson. Ralph, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine, Brandon. Thank you very much for the invitation. Let's have a discussion tonight.
Well, I appreciate you coming back on. We had a great discussion last time, and I got to tell you, I've had some amazing feedback off that show. In fact, your show, in just the week that it's been on there, has been downloaded more than any other show we've ever done in that amount of time.
Oh my goodness! Well, I'm so very pleased because I'm hoping these people are spreading it once they listen to it, spreading it out to others. Because if we don't pay attention to what's happening, we're going to lose a nation. It's that simple.
I agree, and I think people are starting to see that. Obviously, the ones voting for Bernie Sanders aren't, but those of us who have grown up in this nation and love what it stands for, are seeing things change rapidly, much faster than we ever could have imagined. So let's dive right in. I'm going to let you take it. Where are we going tonight?
We're going to talk about the New World Order, and we're going to start by going back to January the 29th, 1991, when George Herbert Walker Bush, President of the United States, gave his State of the Union address to the Congress of the United States. Just a couple of quick sentences. I come to this House of the people to speak to all Americans, certain we stand at a defining hour. Halfway around the world, we're engaged in a great struggle in the skies and on the seas and the sands. He's talking here about Gulf Storm. We know why we are there. We are Americans, part of something larger than ourselves. What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order. Such is a world worthy of our struggle and worthy of our children's future. So we're now going to discuss what is the New World Order. Now, I want to give you a little background that I don't think we talked about before.
Okay.
I've spent over 50 years doing research on this whole subject of conspiracy. I've written 4 books, and I now got 21 DVDs out. I've been on the History Channel twice. In fact, they just showed one of those about 2 weeks ago. I have no staff, no researchers, no confidential sources, no one funding my work. I'm solely responsible for what you're going to see and hear tonight. By the way, permission is granted to copy this and give it away, sell it, I don't care. And as we did last time, I want to start by saying, the listening audience, you're all on a jury. And when you're on a jury, you're asked to disregard all previous notions you have about anything and listen to the prosecution. And, of course, you'll listen to the defense. Now, you've heard the defense all your life. So you're going to, because I'm not going to present the defense, I'm going to present the prosecution as to what this thing is and how serious this problem is. So just, if you will, please keep your thoughts and open, and then ultimately when we get finished, I will ask you to reach your own verdict, and if you agree, then I'm urging you to get this information out, because this is part of a 4-hour DVD called The New World Order. So The New World Order Finally Explained. So I would urge you to find it and watch the whole thing, because we're only going to skim it today. Okay, now let's go back to the back of the dollar bill. No, I'm sorry, not yet. I started studying the New World Order in 1985 when I found it on the back of our dollar bill. That's what I wanted to say. And this is going to question the very foundations of this nation, as we saw when we talked last time. So our founding fathers were not great noblemen, as we're going to continue to see. They set this nation on a course. I call it America's Secret Destiny, and I would urge you to watch for that one as well. It's another DVD you can watch. Okay, okay, here it is. The Persian Gulf, Washington. I'm sorry, in 1991, President Bush, according to the Birmingham News, said, President Bush will tell Congress tonight that the Persian Gulf crisis has forged a new world order. And so apparently that was the beginning, September the 11th, 1990, of the New World Order. Now, by the way, it's no coincidence, in my opinion, that he gave that speech on September the 11th, 1990, because just 11 years later, we had 9/11, September the 11th, 2001. But that's just a coincidence. I got an article in a Milwaukee paper. Gorbachev urges New World Order. He was a premier of Russia. Wait a minute. Lastly, in 1979, Fidel Castro urged the New World Order. Now, wait a minute. Here we got George Bush, a capitalist, urging a New World Order, and we've got two communists urging a New World Order. How can that be? Well, it can't be that both of us will stand with our positions, because we don't need a New World Order. We're already doing that. So what I'm going to show you is that George Bush wants the same New World Order that Gorbachev wanted, and the same one that Fidel Castro wanted. That's the problem. So now, it must be something else, and because both can want the same thing. Henry Kissinger said in 1976, America is uniquely endowed to play a creative and decisive role in the new order which is taking form around us, which means the United States will provide the wind to drive the sails of the New World Order. And he said that 19 years before George Bush. Now, the next thing we could discuss very briefly is the Great Seal of the United States, because that's where this thing was first put into writing about in the United States. There are two sides to the Great Seal. Well, first of all, what's a seal? A seal was used to document a document. In other words, if the king wanted to send a message to someone else, say a head of another government, he would fold it over and then pour melted wax on it, and then stick his ring into it, and then the wax would harden, and that would tell, if it got to the man without interruption, then it means no one else had opened it. Because if someone else had opened it, they would have broken the seal, and if they tried to reheat it to make it the same way, they couldn't do it. And that could be another tip that someone else had read this secret document.
Sure.
So there's only one. This became ultimately the Great Seal of their nation. But we have two Great Seals. Why? Why?
We learned that we had two nations, didn't we, last time?
Yes. But the Manly P. Hall said that the reason the other seal is there is because here's what he wrote in 1944 in a book called The Secret Destiny of America. There exists in the world today, and has existed for thousands of years, a body of enlightened humans united in what might be termed an order of the quest. It is composed of those whose intellectual and spiritual perceptions have revealed to them that civilization has a secret destiny. Secret, I say, because this high purpose is not realized by the many. And that ends that quote. So in other words, we've got a secret destiny, and Ralph Epperson started exposing that secret destiny in 1985 when I toured the country in 91 cities and 31 states. Manny Peel went on in another book to say, if this design on the obverse side of the seal is stamped with the signature of the Order of the Quest, the design on the reverse side, that's the side with the pyramid, is even more definitely related to the mysteries. Okay? Now, what does that mean? The left-hand side has no purpose except to conceal America's secret destiny. And we're going to discuss, what is that? What is the secret destiny? And then we'll get into the New World Order, because that's what our secret destiny is. Now, let's see, I hit the wrong button. Okay, now, Manly P. Hall wrote in The Secret Teachings of All Ages, many of the founders of the United States were Masons, but they received aid from a secret body in Europe. Now, this, of course, we founded our nation in 1776. What was this secret body in Europe assisting the founders? The Illuminati, May the 1st, 1776. In other words, we set this nation up, and he went on, which helped, the secret society helped them establish this country for a particular purpose known only to the initiated few. Now, wait a minute. We're told this is a government of the people, by the people, for the people. And now we're learning there's a group of people who are running something. They're in charge, and they're initiated into something.
And he just puts this right out there for everybody to read.
Well, yeah, you got to read the book.
That's what I mean, but it's right there.
Yes.
All you have to do is read it.
That's correct.
Go ahead. Sorry to take you off
track. So early America was being set up with a secret destiny known only to the Illuminati, the Order of the Quest, which was another group we didn't mention, but they're the ones who came here in about 1620, and the Masons. Now, let's see, we can skip that. Okay, now, here's what Manly P. Hall said in The Secret Destiny on page 181. There is only one possible origin for these symbols, meaning the symbols of the pyramid. The secret societies which came to this country, here it is, 150 years before the American Revolution. Now, Ralph, I took college math 101, and I learned to subtract. I was in college. 1776 minus 150 is 1620. So there was a group that came here at approximately 1626. So here he says the Great Seal was directly inspired by the Order of the Quest, and it set forth the purpose of this nation. So there's a secret destiny revealed in the pyramid side of the Great Seal of the United States. Both sides are on the back of our dollar. Now, let's go to the Great Seal. And let's go over to the left-hand side, and we'll read the Latin phrase above the pyramid and then below the pyramid. Annuit septis novus ordo seclorum. This is on the pyramid side of the back of the dollar bill. Annuit means the announcement of, or the announcing of. Septis is the root for the conception or the birth of. Novus is new, ordo is order, seclorum is world. Wait a minute. It wasn't George Bush that talked about the New World Order first, was it? It was the back of our dollar bill, designed in 1782, that announced the birth of the New World Order. Now we got this. Now, let me start with this. When I was in college and high school, I learned the accidental view of history. No one really knew why wars and depressions and revolutions happen. They just happened. They just do. And we were taught that this was taught by most historians, and it is an enormous lie, because history is written by the victors.
Sure.
I'm saying history is written by the planners. That's why it's secret. So I've developed a history called the conspiratorial view that holds the major events of the past have been planned by a conspiracy years in advance. Now let's define the word conspiracy, because it will define what our founding fathers did back when they designed the Great Seal of the United States in 1782. A conspiracy is defined as two or more people meeting in secret with an evil plan. Two or more people meeting in secret with an evil plan. Now notice, the evil plan must be secret, because if the people found out about it, they would expose it and not let it occur.
Sure.
So you've got to keep it secret, and only available to the initiates that we're starting to study, the people initiated into this secret worship. So, by the way, good people have, with a good plan, seek publicity. Evil people with an evil plan seek secrecy. Okay, now let's talk about Alice Bailey, who wrote a book called The Externalization of the Hierarchy, page 670. The one thing which humanity needs today is the realization that there is a plan which is definitely working out through all world happenings. All that has happened lately is assuredly in line with that plan, end quote. What? There's a plan for centuries? Yes. All world happenings? Yes. Now, there's a man by the name of Benjamin Creme who was promoting Lord Maitreya, but we're not going to talk about that until later. But he said in his book called The Reappearance of the Christ and the Masters of Religion, published in 1980, quote, in every age, teachers have come forth from this spiritual center, meaning the people that have a view of this plan. They are custodians of a plan. They are a hierarchy of masters who substand all world events, which mean they're underneath, and constitute the invisible government of the planet, not just America, baby, the world, the entire globe. By the way, someone else is in support of this conspiracy. That was Bill Clinton. I don't know if we talked about that before, but I'll just do it briefly.
Yeah.
Bill, did we talk about it?
Just briefly. Go ahead and cover it again.
Well, let's go back. On July the 16th, 1992, Bill Clinton told us more than we wanted to know. And you can read this on page 231 of his book called Putting People First, published in 1992. Here's what he said. As a teenager, I heard John Kennedy's summons to citizenship. Now, before I continue, let me point out to you, this was the largest audience at one time that Bill Clinton ever had until he was inaugurated. So this was his chance to lay out and get the whole America to watch what he had to say. But boy, I'll tell you, people didn't hear what he said. I did. He said, as a teenager, I heard John Kennedy's summons to citizenship. Now, we all know who John Kennedy was because John Kennedy met Bill Clinton in the summer of 1992. There's a picture of the two of them in the Rose Garden shaking hands. But then he went on to say there was a second somebody. And then as a student at Georgetown University, I heard that call clarified by a professor I had named Carol Quigley. Now, wait a minute. People know who Bill Clinton, who John Kennedy is, but who on earth is Carol Quigley? Little Ralphie knew, because I read his book entitled Tragedy and Hope, published in 1966, in 1973, 19 years before Clinton mentioned it, because he mentioned Quigley. Now, he went to Georgetown from 64 to 68, Bill Clinton did, and while he was there, notice 64 to 68, someplace between his sophomore and junior year, 1966, Professor Quigley published his book, 1966. So it was right in the middle when Bill Clinton could have read it. In fact, we know for certain that he did read it. He read Tragedy and Hope, and this is what he's read. We're going to now discuss it. By the way, Carol Quigley got his BA, his bachelor's, his master's, and his PhD from Harvard. He taught at Princeton later and taught at Harvard, and then came to Georgetown. Now, here's what he taught him on page 950. This is what Quigley taught Bill Clinton in his book, Tragedy and Hope. There does exist and has existed for a generation. Now, let's go back to 1966 minus 40 years for a biblical generation, means back to about 1926. So he said there does exist an international Anglophile network. The word Anglophile means basically English, which operates to some extent in the way the radical right believes the Communist Act. Huh? This Anglophile network operates like the communists? Yes. Quigley went on. In fact, this network has no aversion to cooperating with the communists or any other group. Now, here we've got a bunch of capitalists cooperating with the communists. They're supposed to be enemies. Boy, you talk about Marx and Lenin and Stalin and all these communists. They hated capitalists. But no, they're cooperating with them. Why? Now, let me tell you, we got evidence that statement's true, at least in Russia, because of Anthony Sutton, one of the greatest researchers. He's one of my truly all-time great heroes. He did a great deal of assistance and work in researching because he proved that there was no such thing as Soviet technology. So now, we'll get into that a little bit later, which means Russian communism was created, financed, and controlled by American and English bankers, which is confirmation that this network does cooperate with the communists. In other words, Russia as an enemy would not exist unless American and European capitalists financed it. Okay, now, let me just point out, Quigley supported this conspiracy, supported it. I know of the operations of this network because I've studied it for 20 years, so it means back to around 1946 after World War II, and was permitted for 2 years to examine its papers and secret records. And then he said, listen to this, I have no aversion to it. I've objected both in the past and recently to a few of its policies, but in general, my chief difference of opinion is that it wishes to remain unknown. What do you mean it's unknown? Of course it is unknown. But notice what he just said. He doesn't mind their methods to get to this end result. This conspiracy financed both sides of World War II, which killed 53 million people. And Quigley has no aversion to that. And Bill Clinton praised Quigley on a national forum speech in 1992, praising this man. Do you understand? If that had been Ralph Epperson that was taught by Quigley, and I gave that same speech, I'd say, listen, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, when I was at Georgetown, I was taught about there being a conspiracy. Quigley had no aversion to it. I want you to know I have every aversion to it. And I'm going to do what I can to expose it. But little Billy didn't do that. Why? Why, Billy, please? Billy knows about this conspiracy. He supported it, and they elected him. Do you understand? So,
yeah. Well, I mean,
scary.
What you have to have, when you look at the military-industrial complex, how else do you get a people to support massive armament, massive production of military weapons, and then the massive amount of money it takes to do research and development, unless you have an enemy?
Well, Brandon, let me tell you this. I'll make this very brief. There is no such thing as a industrial military complex. You want to talk about that for a minute?
Sure, let's do it, yeah.
What role does the government play, Brandon?
As far as?
None. Military conspires with the industrialists to get us into wars. Wait a minute. What role does the government play? It sits by and idly lets this happen? No, because the commander-in-chief is the head of the military.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, now, well, wait a minute. That's not what Eisenhower said. He's the one that said this. Let's finish, then we'll accuse Eisenhower for what he did. There is no military-industrial complex. If the military starts a war with the industrialists, the president can stop the military. He's commander-in-chief. Let me give you one little evidence. Little Dwight Eisenhower was the supreme Allied commander of all of the forces with other nations in Europe, prior in England and later in Europe. He was the number one general in that theater during World War II. Little Dwight Eisenhower was having an affair with his with his chauffeur. He's a married man with children. But Roosevelt found out about it and ordered him to come back to the United States, be seen in kissing his wife and going out to supermarkets and kissing babies and, doing whatever he could publicly, he and his wife, to show that he was not having an affair. And he was told to transfer her, and Eisenhower did so. Now, wait a minute. If it's a military-industrial complex, he'd say, buzz off, Roosevelt. We're in charge. He didn't say that. He did it. Why? He knew. And later on, when he became president, he knew he was the commander-in-chief. Do you understand? Eisenhower did that intentionally to throw us off of the scent. It's the government industrialist network conspiracy that uses the military to achieve its end.
Sure, I agree. I just use the term because that's the term that's out there, but I totally agree with that. I mean, and then, the question is who's controlling the government? Who's pulling the strings behind
exactly
what we
but
see.
At least there is no such thing as the military industrial complex. Point. And notice Eisenhower was one of each. He was the military leader. He was later became president. He knew he was lying, and he knew he was lying.
I'm glad you brought that up and that you made that correction, because it is important that we use the proper wording. And I'm glad you did that.
Explain. I run into that often. And when I do, I just calmly sit down and go through it and ask the person, what role does the government play? None. It's not the government military-industrial complex, or Eisenhower would have said that. But he was in the government, see, so he didn't want you to know that he was in leader and in charge of this whole mess.
Sure.
There's one more man we got to talk about, and that's David Rockefeller.
Okay.
On my DVD, I've got 4 pictures of David Rockefeller meeting with communists. David Rockefeller is one of the world's leading capitalists, and yet he's meeting with Nikita Khrushchev. They're smiling. They're shaking hands. He met with the communist Alexei Kosygin. He met with the communist Chou En-lai, and he met with the communist Fidel Castro. Now, wait a minute. This is proof that this conspiracy does cooperate with communism. The Rockefeller family's been right in the middle of this thing for 200 years, maybe 100 years, going back to the father, John D. So that's why he can go see Nikita Khrushchev and Alexei Kosygin and Chou En-lai and Fidel Castro. Now, why wasn't he arrested by these people for, quote, exploiting the masses, end quote?
It's a good question.
Mr. Quigley was telling us the truth. They do cooperate with the communists. Now, there's one more connection we got to make. Dr. Quigley says that there was a man by the name of Cecil Rhodes who was in this international Anglophile. By the word Anglophile, maybe I didn't say that, means primarily English. But notice it was called an international Anglophile. Cecil Rhodes was right in the middle of this. So Cecil Rhodes made a fortune in South Africa. And Cecil Rhodes fought a war called the Boer War. We don't know much about it here, but it was when he got English troops to go down there and take the gold mines and the diamond mines away from other people and give it to him. Soldiers died to take the gold mines away from Group A to give to Group B, meaning Cecil Rhodes, yes. The nation of Rhodesia was named after Cecil Rhodes. Isn't that interesting? I've been looking for the nation called Eppersonville, and I haven't found it yet. No one named a nation after my descendants, or whatever it's called.
No, all I got was a bike.
What's that?
I said all I got was a bike. Go ahead.
I got one too. It was, by the way, it was a Schwinn, but it had 2 ends on it. So I guess
that's where I
you
got.
Didn't make any money on mine.
No, I got the short end of that stick.
Okay, now little Billy Clinton, after he graduated from the Georgetown, where did he go for 2 years? He went to England at Oxford under a Rhodes Scholarship. Cecil Rhodes used his money to get young intellectuals, brilliant students like little Billy Clinton who had aspirations to come to England and learn more about this international Anglophile network. And then, one more thing, Cecil Rhodes and Quigley taught him to join the Council on Foreign Relations, and Clinton did that in 1988, and later was elected president of the United States, whenever it was in 2000 or wherever it was, 1992, I guess. Isn't that interesting?
It is.
Now, here's we talked briefly about the Council on, just a minute ago, the Council on Foreign Relations. Listen to this. This was an article written in their trade publication called Foreign Affairs, April of 1974, by one of its members. We are likely to do better by building our house of world order. Sounds like the New World Order. From the bottom up rather than the top down. An end run around national sovereignty, eroding it piece by piece. And that is likely to get us to the world order faster than the old-fashioned assault, which means one step at a time until they have the entire plan in place. Oh, boy. Now, let's start talking about this plan. I want to bring to your attention a book written by Terry Cole Whitaker. You say, well, who's that? Well, that's why we're going to talk about her. She's got her book out called The Inner Path from Where You Are to Where You Want to Be. Terry Cole Whitaker. And there's a picture of her on the cover. She's a very beautiful, typical California blonde with a big smile, takes up half of her face, and she's very pretty and smiling. So little Terry Cole Whitaker used to be a TV Christian evangelist until 1985, when she abandoned her ministry and embraced the New Age religion. Oh, what on earth is that? Little Terry Cole Whitaker went to a one-week retreat in Yelm, Washington, where she met J.Z., that's the initial J.Z. Knight, two initials. And J.Z. Knight was running a New Age religion, and she was channeling a spiritual being named Ramtha. Ramtha. Now, what does it mean to channel? It means you stand there and this being speaks through you. And she claimed that Ramtha was 35,000 years old. He was not human, but he was 7 feet tall, and he was channeling her. And boy, apparently Terry Cole Whitaker believed Ramtha. Now listen to what Terry Cole Whitaker wrote. I'm not going to cite the page just to save time, but all of these are direct quotations out of her book.
And this is while she's channeling this Ramtha, supposedly?
Well, she didn't channel, but yeah, J.Z. Knight did.
Oh, okay.
So she's channeling Ramtha, who's teaching her, and then she put all of these thoughts together in her book to show that she's going to give up Christianity because she wants to be a New Age guru. Quote, "You are God, I am God, together we are God." Huh? What is that? I didn't know I was God. She went on to say, all that God is, you are. So whenever I hear people say that, I say, okay, listen, Terry Cole Whitaker, I want you to get all of your friends together who believe they're God, and I want you to, as a worldwide exhibition of your ability to create things, I want you to make the sky pink. You see, because the God I worship made it blue. I said, okay, start. Terry Cole, that was probably 10 years ago, 5 years ago. I don't know, maybe it's not blue where you live, but it's blue where I live. Maybe, I don't know, but it's not pink.
Yeah.
In other words, this is pure nonsense. But Terry Cole Whitaker believes it, and there's very important reasons why she believes it.
Well, and it really sounds similar to a story I once read about a garden and a snake.
Oh,
where was that? Oh, Genesis. That's where that was.
Was that? Wait, you're kidding. Well, you mean Terry Cole Whitaker knew that story? Sure she did. Okay, but let's finish. Quote, "There is no single right way." Huh? What? I thought we had a bunch of moral absolutes. She went on to say, on another page, I'm having trouble getting my, there it is. I had the wrong button pushed. Okay. God, nothing is going, I'm sorry, I went too far. Forgive me. Okay, here she goes. "And no one single truth. Everybody's truth is right for them." What is that truth now? This is me. Now she's going to say, what feels good is what you will do. It's all right to do whatever brings you happiness. Huh?
So it's the same do what thou wilt Crowley kind of thing.
Yes. Terry Cole Whitaker is now selling this same thing that Crowley and Crowley put it in writing that the one who channeled him was Satan himself.
Yeah. Well, I'd say it speaks for itself now, Yep.
Now let's talk about that. Our founding fathers said all men are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. That amongst these are the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, the pursuit of happiness means the right to be a cannibal. So that's what she means. In other words, a cannibal says, gee, it's going to make me feel good whenever, because I get happy when I've got a full tummy, so I have the right, according to Pursuit of Happiness, to eat my neighbor. I'm a cannibal. Is that what you mean, Terry? You don't mind being eaten by a cannibal? Because he's going to say, it's all right to do whatever brings you happiness, and it makes me happy to have you as my evening meal. I don't think Terry Cole Whitaker believes that. Can you see it? Forgive me. I'm going to calmly present the material and let you decide. Is that what they meant by the pursuit of happiness? Okay. Here, listen to this. Terry Cole Whitaker said, you will cherish your children. They will be allowed to become their own master. Okay. You want to play out in the street in the traffic? Go ahead. You're your own master. I don't have the authority to stop you. Because you will become your own master, even if you play out in traffic. Terry, are you... Okay, I'll let you decide. Finally, I said to myself, nothing is going to stop me. I have a right to do what I want. Give everyone a right to do it without asking. Give everyone the freedom to live as they choose. The good news is that sin is nonsense. Huh?
Are you kidding me?
The whole Old Testament is about sin. Jesus came to save us from sin.
Yeah.
She went on, you are guiltless. None of what you have done is wrong. Huh? There is no such thing as wrong in God's world. Which God are you talking about there, Miss Terry Cole Whitaker? Oh, by the way, I'll mention this. In her book, she talked about she's got 4 divorces. So I guess men don't like to go and have her go out and do what she feels, whatever gives her happiness is right. So they divorce her. I don't know. Maybe she divorced them, but I don't know. Okay, I said that. Okay, God allows, God does not judge. Huh? He allows us to be cannibals? Sure, you're free to do it, but he teaches you not to do it. She said, there will be no more tyrants and no more organizations. Huh? No more. God is a tyrant. God wants me to not do certain things. And I want to do whatever gives me happiness. So God is a tyrant. That's what J.Z. Knight taught her through Ramtha. To tell us what is good and what is bad. So no more tyrants to tell us what is good for us and what is bad. The new age will mean the end of religion, end quote. Baby, that's called the New World Order. Now let me tell you this. I'll just make a brief point. If you believe this, you are free to go north on any road you wish. And someone else is free to go west on an opposite road at the same time you go east. And, of course, there's going to be a collision. No one has the right to tell me what to do. No one has the right to put a traffic light up to stop somebody so someone else can go. Because if we don't do that, we're going to have 47 million intersection accidents every day. Someone's got to stop. I'm sorry, Terry Cole Whitaker. There is no absolute freedom. Someone's got to stop. Why? Because if you don't, you're going to run into somebody, and then you're going to spend hours trying to get your car fixed, get it towed, repaired, and then you get it fixed. You go to the next intersection, and you go through, and you get hit again. This is how insane this whole thing is. For those of you who are on Facebook, you know that I'm having this discussion, and whenever I hear these people say this, I told the lady, well, if you don't believe in government, why do you stop at a traffic light? And she won't answer the question. She never thought about that. Do you understand how stupid this is? I'm sorry, that's a judgment on my part. You decide for yourself. So now, government and religion is tyranny because they tell us what is good and evil, and the New Age means the end of religion. Why? Because we're all going to be free to do what we want, jolly well want. So it's not just Aleister Crowley who said the same thing in his book, A Book of the Law. It's Terry Cole Whitaker and many others. The New Age religion teaches this. Mm-hmm. It's worldwide.
Yep.
Okay, now we're still, wait a minute. This is not very pleasant. Hold on a second. I'm going to turn my heater down. It's getting warm in here. It's not spring yet in Tucson. It gets down to about the 50s, but my house is cool, so I had a heat. Okay, let's continue to stop that, else turn the heater off. She went on to say, those who oppose such a vision will in fact simply disappear. Huh? How are we going to simply disappear? Terry, what do you mean by that? You mean you're going to kill us? Is that the way we're going to simply disappear? What if I don't want to simply disappear? I don't think Terry Cole Whitaker understood what she just said, but she said it. It's on, I can't read it, it's print's too small, like page 80 of her book. Wait a minute, Terry. What do you mean we're going to disappear? If what she said is true, Ramtha was telling her to murder thousands, if not millions of people. And that's not unique to Miss Whitaker or Ramtha either. There's a thing called the Georgia Guidestones. I think you and I have talked about this, but for those who've never seen them, please go get Google them, the Georgia Guidestones. And the top one in English reads, we must maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. 500 billion is only 8% of the world's population of 7 million. 92% of us are going to simply disappear. Terry, is that what you meant when you said that? By the way, go back. Even the AWAS who channeled Aleister Crowley told you to kill. And the best blood he told you was like, I think from children first, and then the priests, and then the others, and whatever it is. So he's telling you to murder just like Ramtha. 92% of us have to die to perpetually live with nature. That's mind-boggling. Okay, in the New World Order, then, every person will be free to decide for themselves, but there's only going to be 500 million of us. Okay, here's another one. Alice Bailey, in her book that we talked about. The New World religion is nearer than many think, and because it wanted to destroy all religion and replace it with the New Age. That's what she wanted. So it's getting close. So there'll be no more government, no more religion, no more priests, no more pastors, no more rabbis, no more churches and synagogues, no more government, no more religion, which is the New World Order. Benjamin Creme, in his book that we talked about a minute, this is his other book called Betrayer's Mission, published in 1988. We are moving into a period of climax, leading to events which will fundamentally alter life as we know it. Wondrous changes are taking place in all areas of life, preparatory to the establishment of new modes of social living and relations. We are standing on the beginning of a new era. What? It's called the New World Order, and it's going to fundamentally alter life by changing our very civilization, but only 500 million are going to enjoy it. Oh, come on, Ralph, you're making this up. I'm sorry. Look yourself. Find the Georgia Guidestones, read it with yourself. And by the way, in my book, The New World Order, I quote about 5 others who talked about the reduction of the population. We got to kill people to enjoy this great, wonderful thing.
Well, you don't have to look too far to figure out where this is coming from. I mean, it's the exact opposite of everything the Bible teaches.
Exactly.
And so, figure that one out.
Well, see, that's what Terry Cole Whitaker said. Understand, she was teaching the Bible as a TV evangelist. But she said, boy, I didn't know there was another option to this because she didn't really know what the Bible taught her.
Yeah.
She started learning from Satan himself that you can kill and enjoy because you're going to be free to do whatever you jolly well want to. If you want to marry 27 times, you're free to do that too, Terry.
Well, and what better way to set that up than to start as an evangelist first, and then all of a sudden try to bring those people that you brought in over to you, to the dark side. And It's just everything you're talking about is just mind-boggling how anybody with any kind of sanity can think this way. And so you really have to question this, you know?
Okay, I'm going to bring you another expert on this called Alvin Toffler. Now, maybe you've never heard of him, but his book claims that he is one of the world's best social thinkers. He's a futurist, and his works, according to the book, The Third Wave, are read in more than 50 countries. When he speaks, nations listen, and he is in total support. I am in total opposition. Let me just read a couple of quick sentences. Humanity faces a quantum leap forward. It faces the deepest social upheaval and creative restructuring of all time. We are engaged in building a remarkable new civilization from the ground up. When we understand this, many seemingly senseless events become suddenly comprehensible, end quote. Did you hear what he just said? A total upheaval and creative restructuring. A remarkable new civilization from the ground up where each man will be free to do what he jolly well wants. That's what the New World Order is.
Well, and then he says from the ground up, meaning you have to utterly destroy everything that used to exist and rebuild.
Thank you.
And so that's frightening. I mean, when you look at it the way that you have to look at it, I mean, they're telling you, they're just bringing it out and just saying, this is the way it is. We have to destroy it all and build it right back up. And then I'm sure you're going to talk about some of the symbolism that we see that talks about that. So I'll let you continue.
Okay, let's go. Yeah, I want to give you a quick story. I think in 1990 or so, I was asked to speak in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I went there, and after I spoke to a group that invited me, a gentleman came up and said, Mr. Epperson, or Ralph, whatever, I got a story that I want to share with you, but I want to do it in private. And I said, well, certainly. So I checked to make sure that he wasn't going to take me and say, Ralph, goodbye, and you're going to suddenly simply disappear. But I checked, and they said, no, go listen, you'll hear. Maybe they said, no, he's a medical doctor, and he told me he was. And so I said, okay. So he came to my hotel the next morning before I left to go to the airport. He said that in 1965, he graduated from his school as a medical doctor, and he was assigned to work in a hospital in Pittsburgh to do his internship. And he worked under another. He was a pediatrician, and the other doctor was a pediatrician. So, and he said they became personal friends. And he said that in 1965, let's go back. In 1965, he left the hospital and went to become the medical director of Planned Parenthood.
Oh, yeah, wonderful organization.
Yeah, you bet. Let's wait to see what he learned in 1965. 3 years later, he quit Planned Parenthood and went to teach at a medical school in New York. So from 65 to 68, he was being taught some very important things. Later on, my doctor sent me the announcement that he had from his pediatric society, the Pittsburgh Pediatric Society, on March the 20th, 1969. Doctor, his name, by the way, is Richard Day. He told me not to tell his name, but he later sent me his obituary. He died later in 1989. But in 1969, he came back to lecture the Pittsburgh Pediatric Society. Now, that means, I presume, any doctor, and maybe the wives could go, but basically, he's going to talk to a bunch of doctors. And the title of his speech was, Family Planning, Infant Mortality, Gene Frequency, Abortion, and Other Considerations. He didn't want to talk about gene frequency and family planning. He wanted to talk about other considerations. So now, he told me not to mention this doctor's name, and secondly, not to mention his name. and I have not done so. So I'm going to tell you the story because he told me that he wanted me to know what this doctor said. So the doctor came out, and after he said, well, pleasure coming back. It's been 3 years, 4 years, whatever it is, since I left here, and I'll tell you, I love all you people. Thank you for coming. Now, let me tell you what I learned from 65 to 68. He went on to say, if he saw anyone recording his speech or making notes, he would leave the stage. If he heard anyone claim that he said anything, he would disavow the comment because no one would believe you in 1969. And wait till you hear what he told him. Because he wanted to talk about other considerations for 3 years at Planned Parenthood. Now, my doctor, I'm going to call him my doctor, meaning the doctor who approached me in Pittsburgh. Sure. He wrote down, he said after he left, he didn't write anything down, but after he left, he wrote down all the comments he could remember. And then he said in the intervening years, he added additional comments. In fact, when I got back to Tucson, he sent me a little audio tape of additional thoughts he had put on a short little mic, what do they call it, a cassette. So I listened to that, and I made notes, and what we're going to talk about is what he told me in Pittsburgh, plus what he sent me on the cassette. But here's what Dr. Day said. And by the way, there's no particular order except at the very beginning. Dr. Day said, in 1969, I discovered an organized force during my stay in New York. It was so powerful that it fears no one or anything, and it believes that no one can stop it. What? He said this group, that's so organized force, has a timetable by those inside this organized force. Now we can start talking about what he said. Now, they say there are no particular sequence. They're just random thoughts that he remembered one after the other, and I'm listing them one after the other. He said suicide will be promoted and encouraged and become more common. Has that been the case in America? Mm-hmm. Yes. Children will be given no hope and no future. Is that what's happening in America today? No hope and no future. Our young people don't even know anything about history. They can't find Greece on a map, but they all know all about who the singer on the lead Buffaloes are. And I'm telling you, they don't have, if they don't find Jesus, they have no hope and no future. And that's why they're turning to drugs, because drugs makes them forget all the problems that we evil people who created them, people that of this tyrant God. He went on to say evolution will be taught exclusively. Boy, is that happening or not? If you're a creationist, you can't get a job at a university anymore.
Oh, yeah.
And he said the teachers, the evolution will teach the students there is no God and no future. Could that be the reason they don't want them to teach creationism? I think so. He went on to say, we are all animals having evolved from primates. That theory is so stupid, no mind capable of thought could ever accept it, except our university professors.
We could have a whole show on that, Ralph. It's the most illogical thing I've ever heard in my life. But
I know. We should maybe do that sometime.
I'm up for it. We'll talk about it after the show.
Okay. He said, now this was before he went on to say that we're all going to die. He said, population must be limited to 2 children per family. Okay, now let me tell you a little bit about this. Little Ralph Epperson walked into a class in 1973 at a community college, the very first time in my entire life. I lectured there once before, and I was offered a job, and I took one class part-time. And so I walked in, and after I got past who I am, what we're going to talk about, what the class is about, and the rules about attendance, all the good stuff, I noticed there was one of these wall posters that showed in cartoon form the globe. And the globe was full, all the major continents on half of the globe were shown, and it was just little dots, little circles, meaning people. With people everywhere, the globe. In fact, people were actually falling off. It's that how serious this population was. And I had read by that time a book called The Population Bomb by Dr. Paul Ehrlich, who said that people start dying within years of his book, and was written back in the 60s, I think. So I asked my students, how many of you believe this? The world's this populated, and I'm guessing because maybe they were afraid, only half of them raised their hands. And I said, tomorrow morning we're going to give you your first little example of how you're being lied to. I said, I'm going to move the entire population, which was 4 billion people, to the state of Oregon. Everyone from the globe is going to float, swim, be flown, going to go whatever is to Oregon, and they're going to sink the rest of the world. Oregon will be the only land above the water. Everything else is under the water. You've got one island and 4 billion people living there. How many people will be standing on how many people's shoulders? And when you figured it out, in the relatively small nation, a state called Oregon, a family of 4 would have a lot 50 by 53. That's the size of a residential lot you buy today.
Mm-hmm.
A family of 4, meaning what population explosion? Now, I then asked them after I said that, how many of you now believe in overpopulation? And not one of those students raised their hands. And by the way, they took this story all over the campus, and professors were irate that how dare someone teach something contrary to what I taught. Who is this guy? And they said it's Epperson.
Yeah, how long did you keep that job after that?
I walked on the campus under a mask so people would know it was me. That just showed them. That captured their attention. They said, this guy's got something to say contrary to what I'm being taught for all of my life, and now I'm in college, a community college. So now, let's talk. Why did they want us to reduce population to 2 a family? Because good people, like these college students, will say, gee, I never thought about that. Boy, I can tell you, LA's a jungle. It's too many. So I'm going to reduce my population. But notice this, those that don't care are going to produce 10 children a family, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
And who are they going to vote for? People that give them handouts. In other words, it was intended to get people of conscience to reduce the size of their family, and it worked. It worked. And that's why this poster was on a billboard, a blackboard. It was actually a corkboard in my class, teaching these kids, hey, baby, we got too many people. You better get ready to die.
Yeah, I mean, these universities and colleges are hardly places of higher learning anymore. They're just places of higher indoctrination. I mean, that's what they've become. So just wanted to get that.
Okay, now, he went on to say the government will promote contraception by making it universally acceptable. Do we have kids getting free contraception? Condoms on campuses in high schools and elementary schools all over the country, yes?
Oh, yeah.
Were they doing that in 1969? I don't think so. In other words, in fact, I show a picture taken off the internet of a teacher showing the kids how to put putting a condom on a cucumber. Okay, he went on to say sex will be out in the open and sex outside of the marriage will be promoted. Is that happening anywhere in America?
You better believe
My
it.
God, it's all that. I'm going to make this. This sounds rather Victorian, but little Ralph Epperson grew up in high school when the first question you faced on a date was, does she kiss on the first date? Yeah. Now it's, can I get her into bed?
Yep.
What's changed? Sex will be out in the open, and sex outside of the marriage will be promoted. In San Francisco, in the parks, couples are copulating.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and just look at the porn industry. I mean, that's kind of the realm. When I'm not doing the Fringe Files show, the majority of our shows are on, sexual addiction, porn addiction. I mean, you would not believe the amount of guys who are just wrecked out there. Even in the church, even guys who are self-proclaimed Christians, 65%. Are looking at this at least once a month. I mean, this is where we become. And back when they read that, back in the 60s, it wasn't anywhere like that. You couldn't just find that. So
okay, but so far, you think this guy learned anything of a consequence?
Well, I would think so. Yeah.
I would say yes.
I mean, this is
and we're not
eye-opening,
through
yeah.
yet.
Gosh.
He said men would become more feminized and women more masculine. Has that happened?
Oh, yeah.
We've got men dressing up as the women all over this globe.
Yep, and then you have these guys who are the so-called metrosexuals who do all this pruning and wear these tight pants. And anyway, don't get me started on that either.
Justin
but
Bieber,
yeah.
I've got a picture now. I made this DVD a couple, 3 years ago when he was still very young. And the picture of him shows him with a rather feminine haircut, and he looks like he's a woman. He's only 16 or 18 years old, very young. He's got a perfect skin, and his hair's done, and he looks like so is he male or female? Michael Jackson proved that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here we go. These are pretty much at random. They probably have been. But travel would become a privilege to increase control of individuals and families. What? When gas got up to $5 a gallon, does that say travel would become a privilege to increase control of individuals and families? Now, I have to admit, since I made this, of course, now here, I just bought gas a few minutes ago, and it was $1.64 a gallon, so that's quite a substantial drop.
Yeah, that's just temporary.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, by the way, I made a DVD called $10 a gallon when that thing was hitting at $3 to $4 to $5 a gallon. You might want to find it and watch it, because let me point out to you, these guys at $5 a gallon were making 500 to 600% profit on every gallon. 500 to 600% profit. We pay 18% on our credit cards, and we think that's exorbitant. How much is a 500% profit? Here's another thing that's starting to show up. Bridges and roads, meaning our infrastructure, will be allowed to deteriorate, Dr. Day's learned. Is that happening?
Yep.
We will become desensitized to violence. What? Is that happening? There are videos of people getting beaten, and the people are standing around watching.
Oh, we did. Well, we talked about this in our little group on Sunday. Had my son come on, and we talked about video games and the video games nowadays that these kids are playing at his age. He's 13, almost 14. He was talking about some kids who are 7 and 8 whose parents allowed them to play this game called Grand Theft Auto, where you run around and beat up old ladies. You literally do what thou wilt. You can do anything. There's nothing you can't do.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, they have sex with prostitutes. They then kill the prostitutes afterwards. This is what this game promotes, and this is considered entertainment. This is what's fun, and the parents don't have a clue.
I know.
They just don't have a clue. Sorry, that's another show.
No, that I know, but what you're saying is actually correct, because that's what Dr. Day learned in 1969.
I know this is really. I mean, this is amazing. It doesn't amaze me, but it's just it does it the same. You know what I mean? It's just eye opening that this guy saw all this happen. And of course, they've been telling us what they were going to do for years, but nobody takes the time to read it. So go ahead and keep going. I mean, we need to hear all this.
He said musicians would use coded language to reach young people.
Oh my gosh.
Is that possible? Was that possible? Was that happening in 1969? I don't think so. Let me tell you this: about that same time, I listened to an all day Saturday seminar by a PhD who said he predicted in this year, probably 65, 69, whatever it was, that music would be destroyed. I said, how can you destroy music? Notice what happened to concerts by philharmonic orchestras. Now we got people with a recording machine, with a record player moving it bloop, 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 and people beating on drums, and they don't sing, they rap, which means they string words together to a beat.
Well, and on this note, this is exactly what you're talking about. I want to urge everybody who's listening, if you do not understand satanic symbolism and how it pertains to the pop music today, well, all of the music today, go and Google satanic imagery in music, and just do yourself a favor and do some research, especially if you have kids. Yeah. Do yourself a favor. That's all I'm going to say. But he is 100% right on this one. So go look it up. Okay, let's go. Let's move on.
Okay, Dr. Day said abortion will become normal and tax supported. In 1968, he learned that. Where was he working, by the way? Planned Parenthood.
Yeah, now it's considered a right.
Yes.
Your right to kill your own kids.
Yes. And by the way, does Planned Parenthood, is that tax supported?
Oh, yeah.
So those of us who are opposed to abortion are paying for those who want abortion.
Absolutely.
It's tax supported, and it is normal. Okay, let's see. Fathers would have no say in the abortion decision. Is that true? Now, let me point out to you that the Roe v. Wade decision, that teaches that your body is yours. That's women's body belongs to them. Supreme Court decision, January 22nd, 1973. Abortion was a human right. Well, was it before that? No, because your body belongs to you. Now, let's talk about the Roe v. Wade decision in 1973. That's what came out of that. As we talked, I think yesterday, where we talked before, I think maybe not. Let's just leave it there. Now, 6 years later, in 1979, the Supreme Court ruled you can't take Laetrile voluntarily if you believe it'll cure cancer. So it's not your body. The Supreme Court ruled you can't eat 1,300 edible plants that contain Laetrile because if you believe it causes or cures cancer. This Laetrile is called B17, I think it is, occurs abundantly in 1,200 edible plants. But some guy was arrested because he was using it to cure his cancer in his body.
Yeah. Well,
it's not your body. It's your body when the government says it's your body and not when it says it isn't your body.
Oh, yeah. When they can't make money off your cancer, you can't cure it. That's just...
I would urge you to read the book World Without Cancer, written by G. Edward Griffin, published in 1974.
And do some research on the doctors that have been, suicided in the last year or two.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so they said it was our bodies. No, I made this up. Here's a mother. I had a picture of a woman, at the kitchen. We're stirring a pot. And she says to her kids, she's wearing an apron, which means this was prior to 1979 or whatever, 80. Eat your lima beans, they're good for you. Now, she could be jailed for practicing medicine without a license. Okay? You can't tell your children it's good for them. Only doctors can tell you what's good for you. So there's a hidden purpose. Now, Dr. Day told us this would come to pass on March the 20th, 1969. Now, let's talk about the Hippocratic Oath. Quote, it was written in 400 BC by Hippocrates, the father of medicine. Quote, I swear that I will not give a pessary to cause an abortion. Huh? 400 BC, doctors were told no abortion. Why? Because it was murder. It's been considered murder until the Roe v. Wade decision in 1973.
Yep.
Now, that particular oath that doctors take, that sentence has been deleted. We don't want you to, you're free to give a pessary. A pessary is something that causes an abortion. Do you understand what's happening? This 400... Probably millions of doctors have taken an oath not to cause an abortion, that would be a violation of their Hippocratic Oath and a violation of being a good doctor. But now we can do that. And they changed the word baby to fetus. And as we discussed, I think, a fetus is not a person protected by the 14th Amendment, see? So they can decide that a person lives by privilege, and we've decided that fetuses don't have the privilege to live.
Well, and, we're seeing right now what happens when you expose evil in this country, you get put in jail and evil prevails.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen this group who has exposed Planned Parenthood for what it is. It's a baby part farm. Let's just call it what it is. And they're a murdering group of psychopaths who butcher babies and sell the parts. And they were caught. And now the group who actually outed them and brought it out into the open is being arrested or is being thrown up to trial. And you can guarantee they're going to see jail time. You can guarantee
You betcha.
And so, this has only been 40 years, Ralph, 40 years since this doctor has said this. In that amount of time, we have gone this far. And you're not even done yet.
No. In January of 2006, a newsletter called The Good Word reported on a 13-year study reported in a European Journal of Public Health. So this was one of those publications that they bring these research out to the public. They concluded that suicide rate among women who aborted was 6 times for those women who gave birth naturally.
Oh, yeah.
6 times. I'll give you a personal story. I met a woman whose sister had an abortion when she was young. She later got married and had a child, and when she did, she realized how that child was created, and it dawned on her that she had murdered her first child. And this woman, the sister of my friend, cried as she told me the story. That's one thing about abortion we don't talk about, but I'm telling you, it's probably very common.
Yeah. Well,
if you go ahead.
Well, it's one of the saddest things that you'll ever hear when you do the research on how many mothers' lives have been wrecked by abortion. Many times because they were coerced into it by a boyfriend, by a parent, or just flat out lied to.
Yes.
And, for you women listening, any of you who might have had an abortion, I just want you to know, I want to make an addendum here that God forgives and he can help you through this. He is here for you. Bring it to Jesus and he can work. He's the only one that can help you work through this. I mean, you can be forgiven. It's not an unforgivable sin. And so
just
understand
as an aside, that woman called me years later, the one who had the abortion, then her child, and she read The Unseen Hand. And she called me and said, listen, Ralph, I read your book and I've realized what you were saying is right, and I'm going to give my life to Jesus. And I just cried myself. So this particular woman will be forgiven. Okay, the London Daily Mail, a newspaper in London, in 2010 said abortion is the highest risk factor in breast cancer. Huh? What? It's going to increase breast cancer? According to the London Daily Mail, it was in 2010. So there's a little risk, a little okay, I can't think of the words. Unintended consequence. Another strange paradox. Oh, I'll just briefly cover this. There's a real question of this. I've got articles, 4 of them here, 4 of them, about women who have a baby inside them and the baby is injured by an accident or a car crash or something or whatever. And when the child is later born, it's termed to be having been injured as a fetus and it has rights. Wait a minute. If it has rights while it's in the fetus, you can't take it. Unalienable right means you can't take it. No, we can take it, but if the mother wants the baby and the baby's injured, that baby can have rights like real people.
Yeah, so...
Boy, this is how stupid this whole thing is.
Well, it's how evil it is. I mean, it's not even stupid. It's evil, and it's planned evil, and that's what just gets my blood boiling.
Yeah. I'm contending that life begins at conception.
Oh, absolutely. I think the Bible's really clear on that fact.
Oh, we got the right to take marijuana because that's a right of ours. Here's a study published. Marijuana use as a teen can affect adult IQ. Huh? It can cause harm. All this joy, the states legalize this. Even in Tucson, it's now legal. We got a place that dispenses marijuana, but it can here, according to this study, in our local newspaper, that it can reduce adult IQ. Police, pot-impaired drivers emerging as road threat. 16% of all drivers are on legal and illegal impairing, 16%. That's 1 in every 6 drivers were on legal and illegal impairing drugs. Half of those, 8%, were high on marijuana. What? It's legal. Oh, well, I'm going to skip through some of this stuff there. Here it is. Homosexuality. What? 1969, he said homosexuality and lesbianism will be encouraged. Wait a minute. I thought it was there was a disease. He's saying it's going to be encouraged. That means people don't have to be homosexuals and lesbians. Is that possible? Well, that's what it says. Here, risky behavior likelier in gay, bisexual kids. They're engaging in dozens of risky behaviors that it gets worse as they get older. This sure came as a surprise to me, boy, to think that these kids who are already taught about smoking and dope and drugs and everything else, they do things that are illegal and have risky behaviors for their own life. Okay, let's get off this subject. Ultimately, Dr. Day said reproduction will be done without sex, meaning it will be all done in test tubes.
Oh, my gosh.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, because Britain just authorized that last week.
You're kidding me.
Nope. They can now genetically modify babies with up to 3 parents. And then China said that they're going to clone 1 million people in the future. So this is unreal that this was back in. I mean, think of this, folks. This is in 1969. This is almost 40 years ago. But 40 years is nothing when you look at how long the world has been turning. We have went so far down because of the lack of morals and values in this country and us buying into this BS, because that's what it is. And look where we're at in 40 years.
Dr. Day said divorce will become more prevalent. Has that happened?
Oh, yeah.
Let me tell you this. I read a report. 50% of the marriages today end in divorce.
Yep.
67%, 2 out of 3 of the second marriages end in divorce, and 73% of the third marriage ends in divorce. Reported several years ago, one-parent homes are most prevalent in the United States. In other words, people with husband and wife and children is no longer the majority. Here it is, census data. Married couples are no longer majority. Okay, women will be encouraged to work outside of the family. Now, this has been pretty well ignored recently, but it all started in World War II. One of the things that World War II was planning to do was to get women to work. So many men. We had a two-front war. A lot of men had to go fight it, so women needed to get out of the house and go work in the factories. So, and it's continuing. But there is some break. I've got an article here. More women are trading jobs to return to the home.
Yes. Yeah, and that is exciting news.
This appears to represent a lifestyle shift as women look to reduce the stress generated by working women.
Well, do you think it's because they're just not buying into this feminine ridiculousness anymore, that this feminine movement that was going on, the feminist movement, there we go.
Yeah.
Because it's lies, We see what happened to a generation of kids who were raised under the feminist movement.
Okay, Dr. Day said men will be constantly transferred by their companies to produce tension within the family. What? When I told that to a friend of mine who worked for IBM as a scientist, engineer, he said that when he worked for them, all of his friends were getting transferred. And it was common to call IBM the initials for I've been moved. When he saw that, he got angry. He said that was being done by design. Yes, it was. Okay, euthanasia will become common. Well, this hasn't happened all the way yet.
It's on its way.
Yeah, it's on its way because they're already talking about quality life years remaining.
Yeah, and I think Oregon, if I'm not mistaken, is already in the process of trying to put one of these laws through.
Yeah.
Or if they haven't already. I would have to check that. I'm not positive, but I knew they did have it on the books.
So they're going to determine how much longer you can live, because medical care will become too expensive.
And what happens when you get socialized medicine and the government's in charge of your health care?
It's exactly happening.
Yep.
Medicine will become tightly controlled. That's been happening forever.
Mm-hmm.
I showed in my DVD, and I'm urging people to. This is part of a 4-hour lecture, so I would urge you to watch it to see this. That we turned over 1/8 of the gross domestic product to the most efficient waster of money, meaning the government, ever before. And I can just imagine how much graft and corruption Obamacare is going to cost us. 1/8. Oh, wait a minute. Dr. Day said, quote, 1969, soon new diseases will appear for which there'll be no cure. What? They're going to invent new diseases? Yes. AIDS was made in a laboratory.
Mm-hmm.
There were 2 doctors that came out years ago, did their own DVDs at their own expense, and got it out and showed how they did it. Flus, and we got more flus, and we got a new thing for dogs now, or animals, called something, and it's killing people as well as dogs and cats. And now you can't eat a hamburger anymore because the meat might be got a disease. Dr. Day said the purpose of new diseases will be to reduce the population. Oh my goodness. AIDS was given out in millions of smallpox vaccinations to people in Africa. 18 million people got a smallpox vaccination, and something like 1 in 6 had the AIDS virus in it.
And look at where Ebola originated.
Yeah. Education will slowly reduce the amount of information transmitted. Oh, that's never happened. Children will not learn as much. I asked a young student yesterday where Greece was. He said, I don't know. I said, who's your vice president? I don't know. I said, who's George Washington? He said, he's the lead guitarist for the Buffalo Stampede.
Oh, my gosh. Nice.
2/3 of this particular school in California, their children failed the state reading exam. More than half were not proficient in math. Nearly 80% failed the science exam. The school has not met state standards for 6 years. Scores had placed it in the bottom 10%. But listen, 6 years is not long enough to determine anything. So nothing was done. The teachers now want more time. The school vacation of 3 months has got to be reduced because they need more time to teach nothing. When I was a boy, school started Labor Day in September and ended in Memorial Day in May. Today, it's now July or August, and the reason is to reduce the influence of parents during summer months.
Yep.
Here in Arizona, we got a school district south of us here that it gives the children only 2 weeks off during the whole summer. Here's an article. Teachers were erasing the wrong answers and filling in correct ones to raise test value answers. And it was going on. 170-some teachers were found guilty. 82 of them confessed. Why? Why did they have to do that? The answer is don't erase answers. Teach them the truth.
Well, and everybody's wondering why Common Core is being pushed so hard and why they can't see how stupid it is. They can see it. It's by design. They're purposely trying to confuse our kids.
In 1980, I worked for the school district, but inside the business office. And we used to get the same little newsletters that the teachers got. And there's one came across. I talked about this in my book, and it's also documented in my DVD. I don't remember where it was, but it said some parent in San Francisco sued the school district for malfeasance. You had my child for 12 years. My child graduated, can't read, write, or do mathematics. I want my money back. And the judge ruled, we don't know what education is, therefore there's no malpractice.
We don't know what education is.
I'm not joking. That's serious.
I believe you. That's
what he said.
If you look at an 8th grade the final exam for an 8th grade student back in the early 1900s, most college graduates couldn't pass that test nowadays.
I know. Dr. Day said drug use will increase with the purpose of increasing law enforcement. Has that been the case?
Oh, yeah. The war on drugs.
Oh, my goodness.
And they used it to restrict medicine as well.
I saw yesterday, just by coincidence, a couple of days ago, I drove past a policeman stopped a car on the road, and I presume he was giving him a ticket. There were 2 other cop cars with there. You see, that guy, you never know, can pull a machine gun and shoot everybody. So 3 cops have got to take care of this single little traffic stop. By the way, I just want to end with this. The purpose of the Vietnam War was to create a drug culture in America. The United States government is the biggest drug dealer in the world by importing heroin through the CIA. I document that claim in my DVD called Vietnam, America's Betrayal and Treason. I won't get into it, but I'm telling you, that's what it is. And that's why we have an increase in drug use. Our government's bringing it in.
And it's the very reason we went back to Afghanistan.
Yeah.
The very reason. It's interesting how imports of heroin from Afghanistan increased by 80% after we invaded Afghanistan.
Dr. Day said identification will become required with something being implanted in the hand or forehead of every American. Now, I don't know if Dr. Day was a Christian, because isn't that called the mark of the beast?
Yeah.
Yeah. A friend of mine, Terry Cook, was toured the country back in the 1900s or 2000s, whatever it was, talking about the biochip, and he had some copies of it. Dr. Day said food consumption will be reduced so that its distribution will have to be controlled.
We're already there.
Now, listen, why do we have these cards that we have to use to get our groceries paid for? I believe that's to list what we're buying, so when food is controlled, the government will know how much to provide for us through governments. 27 million people bought chicken, so we better have production for 27 million, this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have a card, you're not going to be able to eat. Where have we heard that before? Listen to this. Weather will become controllable to cause droughts and floods to reduce the food supply. 1989, I think it was. No, it was the 25th anniversary in 1988, the 25th anniversary of John Kennedy's assassination. Time magazine went around to people that were in the news, important celebrities, and said, where were you when John Kennedy was assassinated? And I happened to see that particular issue. Reverend Theodore Hesburgh was the president of Notre Dame University. He reported that on November the 28th, 1983, he was at the University of Chicago studying weather modification in 1963. What? They're talking about weather modification back in that. We're going to get into this subject. I have a picture in my DVD of a largest cargo plane, the C-5A, unloading the world's largest electromagnetic device in Russia, paid for by a grant for the U.S. government of $3.5 million. They built it, sent it over to Russia, and it reportedly has the power to modify the weather. Oh my goodness. They turn that baby on. Every bit of the weather that comes to America comes first from Russia. Mm-hmm. Because that's the way the thing moves. It goes to California, then into Tucson, and across to Georgia, and then across to Europe, and then over to Russia, and then it comes back around again.
That's why HARP is where it's at.
Yes. That's another story we need to cover. But
There's a whole lot of them, Ralph. There's a whole lot of them.
Zbigniew Brzezinski, the National Security Advisor to Jimmy Carter, wrote a book called Between Two Ages, and here's what he wrote during that book. He wrote it in 1970. Even the weather may be modified. He quotes an unnamed specialist in weather modification. Weather modification could be employed to produce periods of drought or storm. Therefore, weakening a nation's capacity and forcing it to accept the demands of the competitor.
Yeah, look at California.
Yeah. Inflation of the money supply will lead to a single banking system. Well, this hasn't happened yet, but we're certainly going that way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, taxes will become progressive. Taxes will become progressive for the middle and higher income families. Is that happening?
Yep.
Progressive income. Barack Obama promised us that he'll tax more for $250,000. If you make more than that, he'll double the taxes, whatever it is. And they'll be taxed to a higher degree so that few could assemble wealth. By the way, I wrote a letter to Obama when I heard about this, and I said, Obama, I want you to know, maybe you don't know this, but the very wealthy all have tax-free foundations.
Yeah.
That means they don't pay taxes no matter how much you tax them. But wait a minute, Senator Teddy Kennedy had a tax-free foundation, so he didn't have to pay the taxes he passed on you and I. Is that called justice, Teddy? How could you do that to us? You don't have to pay the taxes, but we do. Is that fair, Teddy? Terrorism would increase so that the public would relinquish control of our lives to government. Has that happened?
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Oh, my gosh.
Terrorism. There was no terrorism in 1968 or 69.
No.
And by the way, let's end with, where did he learn all this? Planned Parenthood.
And this is just, I mean, it doesn't surprise me what he's talking about because we're seeing it. But what's mind-boggling is that this was in 1969. I mean, this is 40 years ago. He's telling us exactly where we're going to be now. I mean, really, there was one that we haven't hit yet, maybe two.
Yeah. So they're all either they've already occurred or they're occurring.
They're well on their way. So people understand where we're at. Just understand. This isn't something to be fearful about. You know, the Bible has talked about this for years, and understand the mastermind behind all this is the same one from the garden. And so, you know, this is a biblical concept. The Bible is very clear on the New World Order. And the Bible's very clear on who's behind it all. You know, Satan is the one pulling all the strings. And so Ralph's just laying it out for you and letting you know how this is all going down. But this isn't something we should be afraid of. This is definitely something we should be aware of.
Okay, private ownership of housing would cease. By the way, let's talk about a student who graduates from college and already owes $50,000 to $60,000, $80,000. Mm-hmm. Can they afford to buy a new house?
No.
High cost of housing would prevent new purchasers from buying houses. The house that I bought here in Tucson in 1973 sold for $39,000. A comparable house now is $225,000. Why? A house is a house. Got four walls and bathrooms and the kitchens and stoves. How much? $40,000 to $220,000. Okay. The economy. This is me saying that he said that economy would be controlled. Of course, it is. The crash of the economy. I'm sorry. Bill Clinton is the one that caused the recession we're in today, according to the New York Times. I'll make it brief, but it's all documented. I got the article. I'll show you what it looks like out of the New York Times in 1998. They talked about that Bill Clinton was urging the banks to make bad loans. Let's just presume, Brandon, you're a banker.
All right.
And I come in and you say, Brandon, I want to buy a house. It's the American dream. Well, how good's your credit? Oh, I don't have any credit, but I need a house. I have the right. Okay, well, I'll loan you the money. Well, the article went on that someone pointed out that if this fails, banks will the government will have to step in to bail them out. The recession was planned by Bill Clinton in 1999. And then George Bush took over in 2000 or wherever it was, and he let it go for 8 years. And then when he got to Barack Obama, he blamed Bush for it. No, he should blame Bill Clinton. He's the one that started this whole thing, according to the New York Times. So that's okay. Now, I'm going to skip through the coverage of that. Okay, now, yeah, that's what I did. I ended with terrorism. Okay, now, if you're, I don't know, we've got about an hour and 40 minutes. You want to keep going or do you want to stop?
Let's do about another, what do you say, about another 30 minutes?
Okay, whatever. Yeah, we can do that. I would say let's try to do it as briefly as you can, and then if we don't cover it, I'll get people to watch it on my DVD.
Sure, or we can break off and do another show also. It's whatever you'd like to do, Ralph. I'm open to anything.
Let's talk about Freemasonry.
Okay.
Oh, Ralph, don't get into that. Everybody knows Freemasonry is a bunch of guys who get together once a month and have a meeting and talk about how they're going to become better men. And Freemasonry takes good men and makes them better men. We all know. Yeah, okay, let's talk about that. Manly P. Hall wrote, he's one of the most prolific supporters of Freemasonry, wrote, quote, Freemasonry is the most powerful organization in the land. Freemasonry is an ordainer of kings. Its hand to shape the destinies of worlds. What?
An ordainer of kings. That's big time.
Its hand to shape the destinies of worlds? You mean these little guys with their funny little red hats are shaping? Yes. Oh, they don't know that because there's two layers. Arthur Edward Waite, another ranking Mason, wrote, beneath the broad tide of human history, there flow the stealthy undercurrents of the secret societies, which frequently determine in the depths the changes that take place upon the surface. Now, I know you learned, I think you went to a class called Icebergs 101 when you were in high school. You remember that? And you learned that icebergs are only 10% are above water, the other 90% is underwater. Mm-hmm. Is that what he just said?
Yeah.
Beneath the broad tide are the stealthy undercurrents of the secret societies, which frequently determine in the depths the changes that take place upon the surface. Then Manly P. Hall wrote on, the ancient initiates are the invisible powers behind the thrones of men, and men are but marionettes dancing while the invisible ones pull the strings. What? You and I are marionettes, and we're dancing while the invisible ones, these initiates, these frequently undercurrent secret societies, they pull our strings. He went on, we see the dancers, but the mastermind, singular, one mastermind that does the work remains concealed by the code of silence. End quote. Every Mason who learns the secret of the lodge is sworn to secrecy, not to reveal it. Did those 2-3 men just tell us something we're not supposed to know? It's in their own writings. Both of those men are Masons. Okay, another one wrote this. This was Charles Leadbeater, who wrote a book called Freemasonry and Its Ancient Mystic Rites. He was a high-ranking Mason as well. The hidden life in Freemasonry, the mighty force in the background, always at work, yet always out of sight. Huh? What? No, the American government is we the people, of the people, by the people, for the people, and we elect our people, and we have a constitution. It's all, no. Freemasonry is the mighty force, always at work, yet always out of sight. Now, Albert Pike, let's see now. Maybe we should not get into this part. This is pretty scary, and I don't know if I could cover it adequately, so we'll skip it and come back to it someday.
Okay.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. We're at the end. So we have the half an hour. I mean, I've got it. What I'm about to talk about is the ending of this whole section.
All right.
Okay, so let's continue. We can probably do it in 20 minutes.
That's fine.
There's a statue of Albert Pike in Washington, D.C. Albert Pike, according to this plaque, was the leader of the worldwide Masonic movement from 1859 to 1891, 32 years. The worldwide leader, a 33rd degree Mason, led worldwide Freemasonry. And so what he wrote should carry some weight.
I would say so.
And this quote, this letter, is probably the most controversial thing attributed to him because we can't verify that he wrote it. We don't know that he wrote it, but people are claiming that he wrote it. And the first copy of this letter showed up something like in 1859 while he was still leader of the worldwide Freemasonry. Oh, I'm sorry, he wrote the letter in 1871. Forgive me. Let's read it, because this is a blueprint for the 20th and 21st centuries. Because he said that unseen leaders are following this blueprint today. Let's read what he said. The book was published, The Mystery of Freemason was published in 1957 by I think it was by a cardinal. I don't have the documentation here, just a copy of the cover of the book. It doesn't tell us. But anyway, he said that well, let's read the letter. Because Albert Pike in this letter predicted 2 world wars, and they were supposed to occur in the 20th century, and war that was expected to occur in the 21st century. Here's what the letter said. So please let me read the whole thing together, because it's not very long. The First World War must be fought about in order to permit the Illuminati to overthrow the powers of the Tsar in Russia and of making that country a fortress of atheistic communism. 1917, the Illuminati overthrew the Tsar of Russia, and Russia got a communist revolution that killed as many as 40 million people. Mm-hmm. Pike predicted that in this letter, which we know for certain we believe goes back to 1871. The Second World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences between the fascists and the political Zionists. This war must be brought about so that German socialism is destroyed. What does that mean? That's World War II. Mm-hmm. And that political Zionism be strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel in Palestine. After World War II, we created Palestine. During the Second World War, international communism must be strong enough in order to balance Christendom, which would then be destroyed. The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantages of the differences between... I already read that, I'm sorry. And then here's what he concludes. We shall unleash the nihilists. The word nihilism is defined as any violent revolutionary movement involving the use of terrorism. We, notice he said we, that means he and the people above him will unleash the nihilists, which will start a formidable social classic. Now, 9/11 was created by our government. Mm-hmm. It was clearly an inside job. And the proof of that, if you need more than one, you can certainly watch the hundreds of hours of documentaries on the internet proving our government planned it. Someone planned the plan. Someone followed the plan. World War III started on September the 11th, 2001, when the World Trade Center came down because we unleashed the nihilists. And we are now fighting a war where Islam is going to create a caliphate. Their goal is to conquer the world, including America. Glenn Beck tried to warn us several years ago about the caliphate being created, and now we find Muslims going by the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, into the various countries all over the world, and we're starting to see the unleashing of the nihilists.
Yeah, and we're seeing this, ISIS, who somehow has evaded being blown off the face of the earth by 2 superpowers, and you got to wonder how that is.
Yeah.
So...
Well, that's the end of it. So let me just end with one last thought. Now, this is probably the most controversial thing I'm going to say. There will be no world government as we envision it, where there'll be concentration camps, and no guns and no private prayer, all these things. No, because the population has to be reduced to 500 million, and those people will live in a world where each man will be free to decide for himself, as we just proved several times by experts who are quoting that information. Now, the lie is that we're going to have concentration camps and FEMA taking over and controlling it. Guns will be confiscated and children will be taken away and all these things. No, we're going to have a new world order, which, as we already read, is the abolition of the tyrant known as Christianity, because it's God tells you what to do. And their God, Lucifer, Satan, the devil, has told us we're free to do what we jolly well want. So the New World Order, each man will be free to do as he wants. And you say that's absolutely impossible. All of these things we've covered so far, as predicted by, I wouldn't say, I guess predicted is a fair statement by Dr. Day that he learned for 3 years from Planned Parenthood, are happening or are being caused to happen by a conspiracy out to change the very nature of our civilization. And that's where we're going. And I would urge you now, if you got through this thing, watch the 4 hours called The New World Order, finally revealed, and then an 8-hour DVD that will document exactly what I just said in the last few sentences. It'll prove it to you from their own literature and the Bible. That's where we're going. Yeah.
Go ahead. I just want to ask you one last question. How do you think they're going to pull off the population control? Do you think they're going to use nuclear war or anything along those lines?
I have a DVD, a lecture 3 hours long called Only the United States Has Nuclear Weapons. Red China doesn't have them. Russia doesn't have them. Israel doesn't have them. Turkey doesn't have them. North Korea doesn't have them. England, France, they don't have them. No one else does except us. If there's ever going to be a nuclear war, it's going to be us launching our own missiles back on us. Let me tell you how they do it. We've got submarines capable of launching dozens of nuclear warheads. Mm-hmm. It would be very easy for them to float over to the seas around Russia and launch them back on us, and our government will pick them up and say, my God, Russia just launched these missiles on us, and then we're going to blow up Russia with our nuclear weapons, and the game's over. Or HARP could be turned on. Nick Begich claims to be a PhD. He wrote years ago about, and I think he said it was 10 million watts of energy. Then he wrote later on that that's been increased by an increase of 100 times 10, which means it's now a trillion, whatever it is. If they turn that baby on all over, in fact, they're not only just in Alaska. I've read where they're in Greece and other parts of the country. If they turn that thing on, life as we know it ain't going to survive. Cows, things that swim in the ocean, trees that grow, grass that grows, it's all going to die.
Well, and that goes,
except they're going to have to keep 500 million from that happening. I don't know how they're going to do it, but HARP was not, we were told that Ronald Reagan built HARP to protect us against nuclear missiles being launched on the United States. Wrong. Ronald Reagan knew for certain, I can prove this, Ronald Reagan knew that Russia had no nuclear weapons. I prove it. Please hear me out. I prove that. Ronald Reagan signed the INF Treaty to eliminate nuclear missiles and warheads, and according to the terms of the treaty, not one warhead will be destroyed. Why? Because Russia ain't got no warheads to destroy. Let me give you another little example of that. This first-hand story. Way back in 1984, the patriots like me got together and formed a thing called the Saturday Morning Breakfast Club. And we met the first time at a restaurant in the back room where we could have a private room, and we all ate breakfast, and then we got a speaker. And one of the earliest speakers was a retired agent of the defense, the DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency. I didn't know there was such a thing. Not the CIA, but the DIA. So he came there. with these beautiful graphs that he put on a tripod, and they didn't have slides, but they're beautiful things, all red lines and blue lines, and every red line was bigger than the blue line. The blue line showed how many tanks we had, how many soldiers, how many divisions, how many warheads, how many missiles, and then the red lines had how many divisions and tanks and warheads and missiles, and they were bigger than we were. So I asked him during the question and answer period, please trust me. I said to him, Mr. Expert, I said, how do we know the Russians have the missiles and the warheads? He said, we know by two methods. I said, what are they? He said, number one, we interview defecting Russians. Okay, that's a good idea. And then secondly, we have satellite pictures of the warheads on the ground. I said, okay, let me ask you this. Is it possible that Russia could send defectors to lie to us about the missiles? Is that possible? And they tell us they got them? And then, let's just make up an example. Sergei comes to defects to the United States. He says, he goes, he's briefed. And where are the missiles? Well, I've seen 20 of them around Vladivostok. I'm making that up. So then they go to the satellites and say, oh my gosh, there's 20 satellites around, 20 missiles around Vladivostok. So we got dual proof that there's no. Little Ralph Epperson in his DVD made an ICBM, and it's a roll of compressed papers, round. It's a tube, and it's about 2 feet across, and it's used for making cylinders. You put it down on a concrete slab or wherever, and then make sure it's straight, and then you pour concrete into it, and then you cut it, and when you remove it, you got a concrete pile, a post of 6 feet or 12. So I got a 12-footer and a 6-footer, and I glued them, scotch taped them together with beautiful black masking tape. And then I made a cone out of a piece of a cardboard and taped that on there with more black tape, and then I cut out the letters SS-20 and put those on there in red, nice and big, you could see it. And then I cut out a Russian star, which is the emblem of the Russian government. And then I took it out of the desert and got an old porcelain bucket. I used that as the thing that's going to centralize the flame. And I put it on the ground. And I dressed up in brown with boots on, and I took a picture of me walking around this missile. And I told the listeners that picture was given to me by a Russian scientist who came to come here to prove that he had the only picture known of an SS-20. And he gave it to me, and he told me never to reveal his name. And I said, I'm going to do that. I'll never reveal the name of the man who gave me this picture. But there it is. I have the only picture of an SS-20 in the world. And then I confessed, I made it myself. And I stuck it in the desert. I walked around it looking like a soldier so that it looked like it was real. How do we know the missiles were? In the INF treaty that Reagan signed and Gorbachev signed, the missile is subject to external visual observation only. What does that mean? Can we look inside? Can we cut it open? Can we tap on it? Can we drop a magnet on it to make sure it's metal? Can we cut it? Can we roll it over? Can we do anything? No. Visual external observation only. Why is that? In my DVD, I show you articles where the Russians admit that 20% of their missiles are fake.
Give us the name of your DVD again.
It's called Only the U.S. Has Nukes. And I show you the INF treaty because I got a copy of it and read it. That means that Reagan knew Russia didn't have any. The INF treaty then says on another part of the treaty that since the warheads are too small, it's difficult to verify, so none will be destroyed. Huh? Even if they had them, they take them off of missile A and put it on missile B. Does that Eliminate. The word is eliminate. The title page says we're going to eliminate the intermediate range missiles and warheads. Eliminate means you blow it up, cut it open, destroy it. No, we're not going to destroy it. We'll destroy the missile, but we can't even verify if the darn thing is plastic or made out of paper mache or cardboard or like me with these rolls and paint. Do you understand? Please, that's only one of a variety of proofs I have. The whole thing is a fraud. There is no nuclear war threat because only the United States has had nuclear weapons. Russia has never had a nuclear bomb. They claim they exploded one in 49, but I did the research, and Harry Truman, the president, said he doesn't believe they exploded a nuclear warhead.
Well, and, when you talked about weather modification and how that could be used, and when we look at the Bible and what it talks about is going to happen in the end times, much of that could come from weather modification.
Exactly.
So, this is all mine. You've done it again, Ralph. I'm glad we do these shows on Fridays because I'm not going to sleep again tonight. I've got so much going through my head and so much information. Folks, watch the DVD. Watch all Ralph's DVDs. They're all great. You will learn a ton, and they're worth, even if in the back of your mind you're like, I don't know if I believe this, I don't know what to think. Well, 10 years ago, Ralph just said, well, we could drive our own nukes and fire back on our country. 10 years ago, even 20 years ago, I would have been like, that's the most horrible thing I can think of anybody saying. Well, how could you say that? After the research I've done on 9/11 and just the things that you start to research when you actually read the documents. It's sadly
going back to 9/11. Have you watched the Back to the Future DVDs on the internet?
You mean the movies themselves?
Yes, the movies themselves. Well, not the movies, but a documentary made from the movies. There's 3 of them, 1, 2, and 3.
I don't believe so.
Please make a note of this as well. All of you, find it. It's called Back to the Future and 9/11, something about 9/11.
Oh, okay.
And watch it. Because in 1985, it didn't happen till 16 years later. In the movie, they date the 9/11. They tell you it's going to be done by Arabian terrorists. It's going to be done so that Twin Towers are going to fall. In fact, in the 3rd movie, you actually see the Twin Towers fall.
Really? See, they do that in Hollywood a lot. They talk about things before they happen.
But how would they know that?
Well, that's a good question.
There's at least 15 or 20 specific evidences 9/11
I'm going to have to check that out because I've seen.
It wasn't 8/17. It was 9/11.
Huh. I'm going to have to check that out.
Watch it. Yeah, and then tell me that someone did know about this years in advance.
Well, the one that really sold it for me, and not that was the one that the engineers and architects did. I mean, you're talking about certified engineers, certified architects who are top in their field are coming out and telling you how this could not happen the way they say it happened. And so, yeah, if you haven't done any research on it, folks, you've got to do it. You owe it to yourself to know. This isn't, like I said, this isn't about fear. Don't take any of this with a spirit of fear. This isn't something to be afraid of. I mean, the Bible's told us this was all going to happen since the Bible was written. This is not anything new, but you need to understand what's happening around you. You owe it to yourself and you owe it to your family to know what's going to go on around you. And then just put your faith in Jesus Christ. I mean, that's where your faith goes. If you're putting your faith in this country, you're putting your faith in the wrong place. So I think that Ralph has given us a ton to think about tonight. And I think, you've heard what he told us the doctor had to say, and we've seen almost all but 2 of them have come true, and the other 2 are in the works right now. Yeah. In fact, if you look at the way the financial system is going, we are very quickly moving towards a one world currency. There's going to have to be a solution to a world deficit, and so that's one solution that could be thrown out there. But
well, I know this is fun. Isn't this fun? Oh boy, I love that. Thanks, Ralph. I really think you did a great job, baby. I really enjoyed it.
Well, I this is important, Ralph, and this is why we do this show. This is why we did this show, because there's a lot of really bad information out there. And I think it's important to start from the beginning, look at the facts, look at where things have progressed, and do it in a logical form that we've done. You've laid it out, and we're seeing what's been talked about happening. You've given it to us in their own words. I mean, these people are notorious for putting it right out there for all of us to read it, but nobody reads it, because half the time, why would you want to read a book by, a book about the occult written by an occultist if you're a Christian? You're not going to.
Yeah.
And so they put it out there knowing that you'll never see it. And so I just, we're really short on time. I want to thank you for coming on, Ralph. Give us your email, give us contact information, and any other information you'd like people to have. And I will, of course, put everything in the show notes as well.
May I recommend, I don't know if you can do this or not, but I would like to urge you to, if you can, edit into the 2-hour program, that it's for people who just pick up a part of it, it's going to be archived, and that they can go to your website to listen to the whole thing, all of it at once. People might tune in and pick up, 10 minutes of it and then get off, but they should know that the thing's been argued. If you'll do that, there'll be a way, maybe even in the beginning or the end or something. My email address is eppersonra, E-P-P, P as in Peter, E-R-S-O-N, eppersonra @AOL.com. My website is www, of course, Ralph-Epperson, R-A-L-P-H Epperson, E-P-P-E-R-S-O-N.com. My phone number, I'll give it. Listen, I get phone calls all the time. Anytime you got a question, you want to talk, call me. Just don't do it at 3 o'clock in the morning. I live in the Mountain Time Zone. So if you're working or I'm up at 3 o'clock, you wait till you give me a reasonable time to answer the phone. Area code 520-886-4380. 520-886-4380. Little Ralphie Epperson. Brandon, I can't thank you enough for the 2 times you've called me to do your program. I hope that what I said is, I know it's alarming and frightening and scary, but unfortunately that's where we are.
Well, Ralph, you're always welcome here. I'm just so happy you're so gracious to give us your time and your knowledge that you've acquired over so many years. And I just think it's great that you can get it out there for future generations to look at and go, oh my gosh, he was right.
Yeah.
And so
I hate to think about that happening. Oh my goodness, why didn't I listen to Ralphie? Yeah. He was trying to warn us, but I didn't believe him, and now it's happened. I'll be darned. Well,
the bottom line for me is, if we put our faith in Jesus Christ, then whatever. They can do whatever they want. We know how it ends. We've already read the book. We've read the ending. So now we're just waiting for it to play out. But it's good to know what's going on around you. It's good to know how the world operates. And like I said, don't take this with the spirit of fear. Walk boldly and put your faith in Christ. And it's going to work out the way it's supposed to work out for you. So, Ralph, thanks again so much for coming on. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. I always learn way more than I expected. And so it's going to take a week to soak everything in now. So
thank you, Brandon.
Thanks again for coming on. All right. Good night. And everybody listening, be sure to tune in next week. I'll talk to you later. God bless. Cast 'Em Off Radio. Fringe Files is a production of Cast 'Em Off Ministries. Visit us at castemoffradio.com. This program is released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 International License. Music by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com.